right, good afternoon, you guys. Thank you for coming to our April ITS Georgia monthly meeting. I want to give a thanks to Temple for sponsoring, and thank you to Sarah for coming out to be our speaker. If you're interested in attending ITS America's conference in Detroit, please reach out to the info@itsgeorgia.org email address to get your 15% discount code off of registration. Nominations are open on our website for projects to win an ITS Georgia 2026 award, as well as nominations are open for anybody interested in being a board of director. The Braves game in August is a huge success. The event has already sold out, so everybody who's attending should get excited. And then we're having a training event in July that is tentatively scheduled to be at the Hero facility in Marietta, and it will be a technology information session. Our 2027 annual meeting is going to be at Callaway Gardens. Greg is looking for a social/networking lead committee chair. So if you're interested, please reach out to anybody who's a board of director or Greg, and we'd be happy to put you in contact. So to start, I'm going to pass it over to Casey to give our sponsor spotlight.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see so many friends and faces. Friends and faces again. Wow. Been eating, right? So thank you, everyone, for coming out. Appreciate your time and attention today. Looking forward to another great meeting that these guys always put on here. So we're always very appreciative to ITS Georgia for all the opportunities that it affords us in Temple. So know a lot of you guys here, and so a lot of it's in a customer standpoint or a consultant type standpoint, and just want to make sure you guys are comfortable with Temple, know a little bit more about us, and anything that we haven't talked about in any conversations that we've had. Want to know it's not necessarily limited to just what I happen to spout off at any given time. Temple does a lot of things, and we try to differentiate ourselves within the industry a few different ways, including being a fairly old company. We've been around for over 75 years now, or I'm sorry, yeah, coming up on 75 years. Fourth generation family, so any of you guys who know Forrest Temple, my boss, the president of Temple, he's fourth generation. He gets very involved with us. Matter of fact, he was just out in the area yesterday. He came over to visit a customer. I had kind of screwed something up, so he came and gave that Temple attention. The family's involved throughout the organization, and so anytime we make a decision, it's not just based on what we think's good for right now, this product to carry, this opportunity to work on. It's baked into the cake that we're representing that family, their heritage, their legacy, and so those decisions oftentimes are a little bit more than just dollars and cents for us. We do offer a wide range of services besides being a distributor for over 30 vendors. We also manufacture a lot of our own goods, such as traffic cabinets, flasher cabinets, illuminated street signs, excuse me, and we have a services team that comes up with technology solutions. We represent, or we work in 9 states across the Southeast. Georgia is one of the linchpin states for us because of the opportunities here, and so we do have a lot of involvement from the corporate side over here in Georgia. I live locally. I'm in Woodstock. My colleague who also covers Georgia with us, Franklin, he's in the state pretty much every week of the month, and then like I said, we get leadership, management, and services over as much as possible. We have a service team up in Gainesville to help cover our needs in the Georgias and Carolinas, and we're actually looking to expand that services a little bit. So on the manufacturing side, like I already mentioned, the ITS cabinets and Caltrans cabinets, we also do NEMA cabinets and smaller cabinets like flasher cabinets. The ITS side of it is something that we're trying to expand with our services program by getting a little bit more into the technology and services side beyond just the normal distribution of technological components and equipment. We're trying to be more of a solutions provider as well, so that's going really well, and the illuminated street signs, you'll see a lot of those here around Sandy Springs, Dunwoody area, other places that you guys go throughout the state. That's actually been a really big mover for us in the last few years. Between the All-Star game, we put up lots of brand new signs around the Braves Stadium. There's several more going up because of the World Cup coming into town, and then other events that happen throughout here, as well as a lot of your agencies kind of competing with each other and trying to make everything bigger and better and brighter for and safer for all of our visitors and newcomers to the area. So the training side is also something that Temple prides itself on being able to offer. We offer a lot of training from our vendors, specialists. What's been big for us very recently has been the Polera APS, the audible push buttons, as that's become more of a focus for GDOT, and the cabinet training that we offer both remotely and in our shop in Gainesville is really popular. Talked to a couple of guys earlier about that already. And we are, again, looking to find out whatever we can to help people out. We do lunch and learns with consultants. Some of them on a pretty regular basis, some not quite as regular, but we'd like to help fill in any blanks that you guys have. Another big push we'll have coming up is the new EDI, Conflict Monitor Solution, SIO. That's going to be a lot of training that we offer on that as they're looking to roll out a little more connected way of working with your conflict monitors. So this is an example of some of the vendors that we work with here. Again, we cover the gambit. I tell people when they ask what I do, I say we sell or make just about everything you'll find at an intersection except mast arms. So, you know, all the cabinets that all the equipment goes in, the equipment that goes in the cabinets, all the parts and pieces for it, you know, what you use to hang the stuff, the signal heads, all that stuff we represent. And, you know, I appreciate everyone's time and attention, the work we already do with you guys, the work that we're planning on doing with you guys, and any opportunities that you have. We look forward to serving our community. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Casey, and thank you, Temple, for sponsoring this meeting. So now I'm going to introduce Sarah, who's speaking. Serra Hall has driven transformative economic growth as the Executive Director of the Newton County Industrial Development Authority since July 2021, leveraging deep expertise in local government and economic development. She began her career as Covington's Main Street Director in the early 2000s before rising into leadership roles where she has delivered multi-billion-dollar investments in the creation of thousands of jobs in Newton County. Since 2019, she has helped secure more than $11.9 billion in investment, anchored by innovative industry leaders. I'm really going to butcher these. Archer Aviation, I can say that one, and Rivian Automotive, sorry to the first two, along with high-tech capital investment exceeding $103 billion through key partners, including Meta, Server Farm, and Amazon Data Services. During her tenure, retail leakage has decreased by more than $2 billion, while local sales tax revenues have more than quadrupled. Sarah's impact extends beyond recruitment, advancing workforce development and talent retention across the region. She serves locally on the Newton County College and Career Academy Advisory Council and the Newton County Tomorrow Board of Directors and the Piedmont Newton Hospital Board. She serves on the executive board as the second vice chair of the Georgia Economic Developers Association and is an active member of the Southern Economic Development Council, International Economic Development Council, and International Council of Shopping Centers. Sarah studied, I'm going to stumble over this one, at the University of Georgia, and as an avid Georgia Bulldog fans, and enjoys golfing with her family. She lives in Newton County with her husband, Stephen, and their son, Samuel. So please help me give a round of applause to Sarah.
All right. Well, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Kaitlyn, for inviting me and being here today. I truly appreciate this. It was interesting when Kaitlyn wrote me this email and said we would love to come here and have you speak, and my first question was, why? So I will go ahead and preface this with, I am not a transportation gal, but by right so, and certainly I think it is really important that, again, and I really appreciate your time and focus here, because I think we are more alike in economic development in the world that we're working in than we probably think, and even myself thinking this. I can tell you at this point, I think the Rivian project, you mentioned Archer Aviation. Archer is one of my projects as well, too, that we brought into Covington, Georgia. The focus of eVTOLs and transforming really, truly, the transportation network is something really exciting, and they're housing their planes, creating them, manufacturing them right here in the Covington Airport. We won't talk about that today. We'll come back. I'm happy to answer questions or offer this. I did today want to talk about the Rivian project, but I want to start a little bit first and again, kind of give a thought of who we are. Can y'all see this? Sorry, I can move if you need me to. Oh, you got that side. Okay, perfect. who we are. So an industrial development authority has been long established in the state of Georgia. You've probably heard either the good, the bad, the ugly on a lot of these projects of who is the industrial development authority. Most every county has an economic development office. Many of them have development authorities. Development authorities are really the arm and a quasi-government arm to really be able to offer what you've heard, tax incentives, land, other kind of pieces of infrastructure support, really back to projects, companies, or local government. Basically, we're the guys that keep you out of jail, and the thought of really being competitive when we bring projects in. Who you see behind you is really our team of not only our board members, but our team of employees in our office. And I want to draw the attention again, and I won't spend too much time here, but I think it's important, is that our team is built from the 1950s, but also was built with by right by title for people like our Covington mayor, our county commission director, and as well as our chamber of commerce. Business and industry, government's kind of crosshairs, why it's so important between the two together. Again, I mentioned that we were established in the late 1950s, but this is from our bylaws and still is our mission today regarding Newton County and how we do the work in economic development. Our focus is really on the welfare and trade and good for our community, increasing the tax digest, but also lowering the unemployment rate to the lowest extent possible. It's jobs. Everything that really circles or drives around those kind of initiatives and points is really the community and job creation as a whole. So we're gonna dive a little bit into Newton County. How many of you have been there? Yay, thank you. How many of you came for Vampire Diaries? Oh, 1, 2, yeah, be bold, the girls in the room. Okay, all right, okay. I'm very proud of you. Usually that's like the roaring crowd, you know what kind of group you're in, if you're vampires or not. And so a lot of the world of, again, Newton County, we're kind of on that outer ring of the metro pocket. I like to call us right now this kind of weird rural metro purgatory, because we're like the old song, we're a little bit country, and then we're a little bit not, right? So if you can't see the screen and kind of the topics there, we have grown drastically. So many of you, if you've been to Newton County way long ago, we might not look like the Newton County today. If you've been most recently, you go, why aren't you growing quicker? We've added about 10,000 people in the last 5 years, and we're expected to grow by another 11,000 people in the next 5 years. Personally, I think that number is extremely low. We've actually seen those numbers starting to surpass already, specifically into the center of Covington, which is kind of this blue pocket here, or as many of you know, Mystic Falls, Georgia, Sparta, Mississippi, Serenity, South Carolina, and where we have films and film attractions there. But as you look, we're really bisected, obviously, by I-20, and that's kind of been our heartbeat. We have 6 interchanges along Interstate 20. Very thankful for that kind of connection, but each one, as you can imagine, like any other interstates, are drastically different. Like I said, you hit the really extreme suburban kind of urbaning pocket, you hit the rural end, which really is kind of, you see more cows than actual people and cars, and then we're going to talk about today where you hit out towards Stanton Springs, which is our last exit at 101, and now the newly formed 105, which is the new one that has come in due to the Rivian project. Who are we as Newton County? So to kind of, again, give you a snapshot, we are really a focus as part of our key industries, the government, which is pretty much almost every community's largest employer, schools, city, county government. Second is manufacturing. We are a home and a placement of manufacturing. For decades, prior to the Rivian and Archer of it all, you really are kind of your household names. How many of you eat Cheerios, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Trix, Bugles, the things you put on your fingers? They're all made in Covington, Georgia. And we've had the largest cereal plant in North America for now over 40 years. So any Cheerio box came right out of Covington. I mentioned that I'm a golfer. My family's a golfer. How many of you are golfers? Yep. If you're not playing a Bridgestone ball, I suggest you do so to support Georgia and local native, because that is a Georgia job. All Bridgestone golf balls, even the ones that Tiger Woods plays with, was made right here in Covington, Georgia. And so we know manufacturing. We know what that looks like, and we've seen that for many decades. And then the construction has really popped up due to the things of what we've seen the growth, whether it has been data centers to things like other manufacturing plants and so forth. Healthcare and education services kind of round out the end of that. Our unemployment rate is kind of shocked. And again, I'm going to get to my point of why I'm showing you these pieces from a job market and again, who we are and why it was important for Rivian to come in. But I think it's important to kind of look at as other communities, we hit our pockets, the recession pockets, the COVID pockets. We popped up here during COVID, closer to 17% unemployment. We're truly dropping down to 4-ish% is really our average overall, which is kind of a pocket of saying we're almost at full unemployment in our community. And so it breeds the question of why the heck did you bring Rivian in, right? And we'll get to that. Our median household income has increased drastically. Again, Newton County, those of you that have came here in the past, a rural market where some of our numbers were sub $40,000 for a median household income to today, it's over $80,000. Now that's certainly rivaling a lot of our partners. We kind of claim to fame in some of those things. We now have a target, so people, we'll have the largest target in the metro area, and was the most recent one to be announced in the state of Georgia in the last 6 years, which is huge. We now have a Publix where people can go and buy $9 blocks of cheese, and I think they can now obviously afford to do so. And so that's something that, again, ongoing, along with poverty rates decreasing, other features, and it's due to companies such as this. We truly focus on business and industry, and again, as you kind of look at these pockets of who we are and why that's important, our biggest problem, and again, the Rivian of it all came in, was because of a map like this. Now, many of you have probably seen this, an inflow-outflow map. I mentioned that our population in Newton County is about 122,000 people, and if you look here to the right-hand side of the screen, almost 40,000 or over 40,000 people leave Newton County every day to go to work. It's a lot. 40,000 people clog up Panola Road, clog up Wesley Chapel, clog up 285. Every day when we hear it on WSB and there's another wreck, more than likely it's coming from people coming from Newton County to head to Atlanta. And we all know that. We're sorry. And so the challenge of really, why do we need a Rivian plant? Why does it matter? And again, why am I here even talking to you today was because at the root of true economic development, we were recruiting not only for business and job creation, we were recruiting to reverse this number. This was a part of our initiative and plan to say, stop the commute. Stop 40,000 people leaving our community that we have been known for many years to be on, which was a bedroom community. There's a better life in Atlanta, not here. It's not true. Also, our generational jobs, that you got a job at General Mills just because your dad, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, my uncle worked there, have now changed. That is not happening anymore. And so as a result of that, and the 40,000, what do we see in a micro level for us as a local community? We see that 40,000 people are stuck at Panola Road and they're not at a PTO meeting. We see that 40,000 people are not sitting in that restaurant supporting a coffee shop, a restaurant, or another area, and we are littered with fast food chains. We see that they're not making it to make home to help with homework or become mentors, and our literacy rates are suffering. And so as a big part of this is that you all in the transportation world, this was a critical part of recruitment. This was a critical part of, again, the intersection of how we should work together more efficiently and more, again, I appreciate Commissioner McMurray. Also, Deputy Commissioner Andrew Heath was a big part of this initiative. We drove them crazy to learn our world, and I know that we spent a lot of time together in talking about this because it matters. It matters in dollars. It matters further on infrastructure that we do have. But at the bigger idea, this was a pocket that when we were competing against Texas, New Mexico, and others, and Rivian said, your unemployment rate's at 4%, where are my people? We said they're already here and trained. Atlanta's growing at a rapid rate. It's not going to stop. You've seen it. You're running studies on it. You know that the population's increasing, that they're going to be okay. And so if we move some employees that are back to their hometown and we're working where we live and we're able to do that, you can fill up now 7 Rivian plants with just a few people staying in their own hometown working at this one facility. Do you want to know where the #1 place that the 40,000 people are going to work every day? You may want to take a guess. Bueller. Somebody get brave. Wait, what did you say? The airport. Hartsfield-Jackson is the #1 place that they're going to work. Not to just be pilots, right? The skill set is not necessarily a pilot. The skill set is in supply chain management, manufacturing, other kind of components of technician work, which again is directly in alignment for things of why the Rivian plant could be a key feature. It's also some of the other posed arguments of why are you putting this out here in a rural community? Again, we're not just a rural community. We are seeing the growth too. And we've got to offer and afford jobs that make sense to be right outside to offer that for our families and people that are growing in our market. So from the economic development side of it all, we mentioned the labor force, and I apologize if that's a little bit small, but from Covington as a whole, you've got almost 1.5 million people, right, to tap into, whether it's Rivian or others coming in that direction. And I think between the 40,000 to 1.5 and that number continuing to grow, especially in that population, it's bred for really true growth of business. So what are we looking at here? And again, I apologize, this map might be a little bit smaller for some of you, but this is our snapshot of I-20. These are our interchanges that we see. These are also a snapshot of every industry that we have in our community that's over 200, 250 employees or more. And so again, in the center, you can kind of see the heartbeat of Covington. I mentioned the General Mills plant. The new Amazon data center services is located in the heart of Covington as well too. And then if you head all the way out east, you will see the pocket that is Stanton Springs. What you also see in between is another large swath of an interchange and a large swath of green space that has forced our commissioners to place things in moratoriums, for us to work rapidly for new ideas and projects to kind of consider whether it is becoming housing or new business, suppliers, et cetera, that has come and looked in this direction as well too because of the growth. So Stanton Springs, what is it? Who is it? It was 4 counties. It was these 4 counties that got together about 31 years ago. It was a group of men that sat down, many of them were county commission chairs at the time, and said, quite frankly, this map didn't exist, but in their mind, they said, this is a great map. This pocket, Covington's really the heartbeat. We see manufacturing, we see mill work, we see other agricultural plants. At that time, General Mills had just come around in that area and was really starting to ramp up. We had polymers and plastics developers as well too. And that was even prior to I-20 fully being built out. And they said, Stanton Springs needs to be a place for a different style of job. We can do food, we can do mill plant work, we can do plastics, we can do tier 1 automotive, but this needs to be the place that looks different. And we want some different future type jobs. So they bought 1,500 acres. What you see in the colored area down at the bottom, so the south of Stanton Springs was the beginning. They bought 1,500 acres. If you also can kind of see, it's between 3 county lines. So it was in Newton, Walton, and Morgan County. Now, our friends in Jasper joined into the mix, and everybody goes, well, why was Jasper included? Well, Jasper actually provided that rural kind of pocket that they needed to take on the debt. It gave them an extra credit, and so they just said, hey, throw us in. We're mainly we're mainly trees, we're national forests, we're not gonna have a lot of jobs, but we'd like to jump in the mix. So they bought the property to the south of the area. They purchased it and said, from one family owner, it was the Stanton family. It was predominantly agricultural land, and again, they were not farming that land whatsoever. The sisters had no family, no kin. It was 2, again, young sisters that had been left to, and they said, yep, we'll sell it to you all. The community sat on the debt from Stanton Springs for 19 years without one user because they were so focused on, again, it was going to be a different type of user. Now, you can imagine a lot of elections happened, a lot of unelections happened, a lot of people got booted out because our citizens, people like myself who live there, were constantly paying on the debt for that land. And then along came a project, and if any of you were here in Georgia, it was called Baxter. Baxter Pharmaceuticals showed up in around 2010, 2011, and it is still Georgia's largest pharmaceutical plant. It was $1.7 billion of an investment and 1,500 jobs. It was a medical device company, and it's located here. They took the first 160 acres out of the site. The state came in at the time, built the Bioscience Training Center, which is a part of the Quick Start program, and actually GDOT came in and helped support through LMEG grants this spine road that started, which is now Shire Parkway. It's a 4-lane boulevard. And so the commitment back to match dollars between the 4 counties, all of their LMEG funds went in to combine that to match dollars there. That was the first project. Then a lull happened again. We thought we were going to compete with places like North Carolina or others for pharmaceuticals, and it really hit a dead stop, and it just ended. Georgia wasn't the place for pharmaceuticals. We weren't going to be that market. And then along came Meta, Facebook. And so we saw the beginning. We were one of the first with us in Douglasville to really have data centers. And you can see there are 2 data center campuses here. So Meta actually has a spot here and all of this property. They bought almost 1,000 acres between the 2 campuses. And then the JDA said, we're going to purchase the property to the north, the green property. After they did that, they purchased the property to the north. Quite honestly, it was not because they were going to do more development, but it was to block out tract home builders. There was a significant amount of tract home builders, and I'm sorry if anybody lives there, but just to give a reference, if you go on 285 and kind of near Covington Highway and you see a bunch of apartments and things that come along, that was really the focus in the plan. And the JDA said, this is not the spot for that. We'd rather buy it and hold on to it than see I-20 kind of become littered with further tract apartments and homes. That's just not what we need at this time. So they bought the first 600 acres, and then Rivian showed up. It was a different kind of product, and it really changed the JDA's mind. They had already kind of focused and said data centers were here. They had a couple of other interest points, but then we put together about 41 parcels with 11 property owners, 11 homeowners to create the Rivian site. The Rivian site's almost 2,000 acres. It's about 1,989 acres as a combined. Again, there's a lot of controversy, no secrets, right? Nothing here, and happy to answer those questions. We hit 11 lawsuits. We won all 11. We spent quite a lot of tax dollars on those 11 lawsuits to fight for the rights to really be able to develop this site into an automotive plant. But one of the things that, again, was critical was when we sat down with each of the property owners, whether it was us or the state of Georgia, it was a focus point that every property owner said, I do not have family to leave this farmland to anymore. My children don't want it. My grandchildren don't want it. Agriculture has become hobby rather than intention and purpose of way of life and development here. We're getting beat out unless we have thousands of acres instead of a couple of hundred. And many of the large property owners at 400 or 500 acres really came back and said, you know, we just cannot make this and we're retired. And we would love to see it go to something for the future generation of jobs rather than just be homes or houses that become track in that model. Again, the Rivian site was created at this time. These are some images. If you look here in the south, that is Facebook to the bottom, the new Facebook plant. And this was the Rivian site before it got started. And so if you can just see across the street in the Forestry Tree area. This is also a kind of a continuation of the Facebook project. So again, in the foreground, property of Facebook 2, and then again, I-20 to the other side. This image then comes and you can see the Rivian site begin to be developed on the opposite side. Again, Facebook 2 plant is actually up and running. Tomorrow is their first day that the entire campus is fully developed and has turned completely on. So post a lot on Instagram or use WhatsApp because it's coming out of that campus. But Rivian to Georgia, why did it matter and where is it coming from? So this is a shot of really today, this was in March, and so not too long ago, of what the campus looks like. I think along those lines of really where what you see in this site is, again, the site itself in the Stanton Springs on the other side, and we'll talk a little bit about the Spine Road, but what came along with Stanton Springs, and I'm gonna jump back and forth to Rivian, is also the Archer Aviation Plant. As it was going on, they kind of both said, well, wait a minute, what are you doing with transportation? Why is Georgia being effective in this? If Rivian's interested, why not we talk about eVTOLs as well too? So at the same time, we brought in Archer Aviation to kind of have that same kind of component between each of the sites. And again, that's what you see here. I'll go back to this and you can see kind of in this photo, the state of Georgia placed in the Spine Road. It's a frontage road. It's 3.2 miles. That was the part of the project that was GDOT's incentive from this. It's a beautiful parkway. What you can't see really on this map that is closer in was that the request, and when they came in from GDOT, and they said, we're going to build you this beautiful parkway, 4-lane divided parkway along this area. Rivian stepped back and said, can I have a bike path? And that really kind of stopped everyone in their tracks and said, what do you mean? And they said, well, we'd love a bike path. And we said, do you think people are going to bike to work? And they were like, why not? Right? And why would we not do that? And we want to be able to test and go down. And we didn't know was they had a form of investing in a new electric bike, right? And so, yeah, you're probably like, yeah. And this bike path would be the thought. And again, they started laying the inroads of talking about it being a smart bike path. And how do we put more innovation in that bike path, that if we have it along the road, and using the capabilities of what is currently there, and how do we make that bike path smarter than ever before? We don't need to build something new. We don't need a new test track. We have our own in the front of our site. We can run 5Ks. We can run biking paths. We can do all of the things that we can really venture in together. I was talking to Brandon before the session, and we actually had a full plan of where lights were going to go along the frontage road, and we had an all-hands call, and Rivian said, we have to talk about these lights. And we thought, oh, here it goes, right? Like, they're going to want some crazy light that we're not funding or we're not supporting. And they said, we want no lights, period. And we said, what? And they said, we don't want any lights. I'm sorry to the Temple guy, because that probably doesn't excite you, but they want no lights. And so I was like, ugh. And so, they want no lights. And we said, why don't you want lights? And they said, because the lighting would mess with the natural resources and the natural environment for the animals that are here. So the Rivian side, if you can see, this entire swath, which was the first 600 acres that we bought, will remain forest land. And so tomorrow we sit down with DNR and other groups to talk about how do we make sure that there's preparation to keep wildlife effective and connected back into the Rivian plan. We're not going to have lights on the frontage road. We're going to work and figure out what do lights really mean to kind of keep natural sky, whether it's dark sky, can you still see the stars? The stars are immaculate out here. If you want to come and see the most beautiful stars you've ever seen, come down in this area. And again, we have an observatory at Hard Labor Creek, and they said, how do we preserve that? How do we make sure that we're doing the right thing? And so I really commend the teams with GDOT and others to kind of listen and also work back and really be able to kind of fit those needs. But these are some of the requests that has come in, and again, has really excited us about transportation as a whole. I'm going to skip through these. So again, site is how it looks today. Again, where was it? This was the farmland. This was the larger tract. This is what GDOT in the project. So the frontage road, we had widening on 278, and then a whole new interchange here, the new beautiful 105 exit, which again was very intentional that all traffic for trucks and operation, which was really calculated to think about that the traversing from the ports to 16, coming across 441, which 441 has been significantly widened, coming through Morgan County to come to I-20 to hit 105 directly into the plant. The plant then here in this area will be shipping and loading. To the north-hand side will be the rail, so it all connects in together. Again, further on that eastern side, where again, we're keeping some of the vegetation on the right-hand side, and then also the main meat of the site will also be developed where some people had farmhouses and other places. So the limitations of really being able to develop the site were kind of rare. Usually you kind of see other sites, I won't name them, but they're down south on 16. They just scalp the whole land, right? You don't see a tree in sight. And Rivian really kind of came in with us and said, how do we navigate around where things are already built and developed and make that kind of look in a different way? We also are partnering now that the Joint Development Authority is taking care of the frontage road. Again, we mentioned the lights, but we're also taking over ownership of the interchange to do some kind of different kind of vegetation. We're working in that with partnership with Rivian as a whole. And so all of those things are complete. Again, just some images here today. You can kind of see the frontage road down at the bottom. The bike path is here. You can kind of see it in a faint line. It's a beautiful bike path, so if anybody wants to come and ride. I think the other thing, too, is that we also are known for in Newton County is that we have an old Norfolk Southern line that we've now turned into the Cricket Frog Trail, which is what we kind of call our mini belt line. It's 15.2 miles, and we actually have a really amazing team between Rivian, our teams, even some GDOT team members that are figuring out how to connect Cricket Frog to the Rivian site, and then even if you've been to Athens, the Firefly Trail. And so all of those things in combination of how do we connect biking, e-mobility, of biking, otherwise, running, et cetera, to think about this. How do we turn the 40,000 people that are driving elsewhere that are not doing these activities to offer them amenities here that become more advantageous and not just a job or a lifestyle, which is really great. So the site looks as is. You can kind of see, actually, this was taken 2 days ago. So the new employee entrance is going in, the substations, it doesn't show, all of the transformers are in, all of the deep utilities are in. This is the front of what the Rivian site will look like. They are pouring concrete, as dry as it is today, which is supposed to rain on Saturday, so we'll see. But concrete is going in. Again, we're mentioning with DNR coming soon to talk about some of these other areas. The employee entrance will get paved as well, too, to go into the site. And then the right-hand side, you see that is what R2. So we are slated to build R2, and if you follow anything about Rivian, we also, they announced a partnership with Uber for autonomous vehicles. A huge partnership will come in is that they've guaranteed that they will purchase 50,000 of the R2s from Georgia to make autonomous vehicles. So that's not happening anywhere else. Their engineers, their teams, they will come here, and so all of those vehicles will be processed here in Georgia as a whole. They also announced our East Coast headquarters. If you're walking down the Beltline, go near Krog. You will see their facilities here, which they also have finance, sales, all of that is moved now from Normal, Illinois, California to here to kind of be this epicenter. And so we're very excited about that. Why does education and talent matter between the two? Well, it's because they're doing projects like this. You see them now out with their students, out with other groups, and it's for a reason when they're doing mentorships and other kind of programs for educators of how do we convince not only the 40,000, their parents, others to come and think about other job opportunities here. I'm sorry this is a little bit small to read, but I got really excited. We have a program right now in our school system that we call our students really the undecideds. And this is 266 students that said, I don't know what we want to do. We don't know. We have no clue. We don't know if we want to go to school. We don't know if we want to go to work. We don't know. And we've got them in a class kind of teaching life lessons. But for the first time ever, and this is a survey snapshot, they're answering questions like they want to go to tech school. They want to work with their hands. They want to come in and think about different opportunities in trades and skills trades. They want to go into these departments, and we're taking it a step further to think about, and how could you take it a step further in your organizations of how you're reaching students and high school students greater and stronger than ever before to be able to do so. Because they're wanting to do this, is how do they get in that avenue? Is it through a Rivian plan? Is it through a technical college? Is it through an apprenticeship that you offer in some other way? We also are putting out things like the ABCs of Newton Industry. This is going to our K-12, and where we're talking about this from a very elementary level. So not only to talk about Rivian and electric vehicles, but making eVTOLs, autonomous vehicles, even ITS as a household name, that our students are smarter than ever before. And so why aren't we already talking to them about things that really could impact them earlier and sooner? So I know that was a very quick, again, Kaitlyn, thank you so much. I'm happy to take questions or to go back to any of these slides. But again, thank you, and thank you for what you do. I think it's really encouraging overall. And again, I really appreciate the work of your groups, whether you know it or not. I think that your association or others had really just incited groups like a Rivian to think Georgia is just a really phenomenal place to then have investment here. So thank you. I think they told me to wait until you get a microphone. There's one here up front because there's a live stream. So say hey to the live stream.
Can you talk?
Uh-oh.
Probably don't even need it. Can you talk a little bit about the municipal environmental engineering challenge
They're going to make you get on the microphone. Yeah, so help me. So the question was, can we talk a little bit about the municipal challenges that we're having regarding Rivian and then other development like data centers? Is that what you mean? There are none. What are you talking about? Yeah, here's the thing. I'm going to go back here. I think any group has challenges, and I think for this particular group, this was understandable, right? This map had happened for 30 years. The plan was set, right? This was the idea, the concept. Everybody was working in this direction. And truly, I think some of the concern and where challenges come from any municipality and anything that you see here is that overnight it went like that. It's a lot. That's a shock factor, right? It's not small. And big challenges, big opportunities come with big problems, right? The unknown, change is scary. When you're talking about 7,000 people, 7,000 vehicles, the naysayers go, where are you getting them from? Why we go with data about the 40,000, how we've already talked to them, how we've surveyed them. The water and the water efficiency, I didn't get into that with electric and water. Again, every community is concerned with water. We certainly are, but Rivian, Meta, Takeda, this is a whole different group, but topic is that we will have the first combination reuse recycled gray water facility that will capture gray water to recycle through all three of these different sectors. And that is one of the only ways that Rivian and or other data centers were allowed to come into Newton County. So we will recycle the water from Takeda, Meta, Rivian, and then put it in a pipe to be able to keep that kind of closed loop system. Now that's at a cost, right? We received a $180 million grant from the federal government during ARPA to help fund that, but that's one of the critical ways. But I think overall the shock factor has been quite a lot of it, right? And how do we talk about that? It is through data, it's through education of this. Data centers, totally different subject. I think the concern of data centers really come into utility consumption, like we said. How do we have an answer for it? How do we make sure that we are making sure that the citizens in Newton County can turn on their shower and there's water, or even days like today and what we're in with the drought right now is very concerning, and we're watching and mapping, plans of that. Do you use more electricity or do you not? But the municipality, again, what's been interesting, even through 11 lawsuits, it wasn't the municipalities. It was small interest groups that, again, that came as the attack on that end, and the lawsuits that, quite frankly, were just, in my opinion, somewhat uneducated at the time. I don't know if that helped answer some of the questions.
Well, I read something recently that by 2030, the water supply, they were supposed to be pretty much gone.
In Newton County.
So I just wanted to know, what
Yeah.
you're doing to address that looming deadline.
Sure. So there was a very friendly New York Times article that you're probably speaking of that says 2030 has gone. That's not really true. I think the New York Times just kind of went a little bit more excited, and that gave a little bit of color to think of dire fear. What it really should have stated was that by 2030, our water that we are earmarking for industrial water should be at its capacity, which we have been very focused and very intentional of saying, this is for industrial business purposes, this is for the everyday citizen. Our Hard Labor Creek Reservoir actually has the capacity to go over 55 million gallons of water. And we're already planning for second and third reservoirs regionally as well too, but also the concept of recycling is really the critical point that we keep and maintain that as well. Yeah.
All right, so I grew up in Rockdale County. My first job was actually in Newton County.
Nice.
At the electric utility, Snapping Shoals over there. So this is very near and dear to my heart, literally.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, what lessons did you learn, or, from this undertaking, or have you learned and shared since with the other smaller metro Atlanta counties like Rockdale County, like Walton County,
Yeah.
where, a significant amount of their, population will commute into the city for work and then commute back. What's some things that you learned in this process, and or have learned in the past from those other counties, and how's that shaped how you guys are moving forward?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing is, again, I go back to this slide and this transition is, having a purpose and mission. Like, what did we want to see, right? We wanted to see jobs. We knew those were concerns. We knew they were issues. And then quite honestly, I mean, I'll give it to the anti-side of this. Those that were in the lawsuits is they really said you needed to do a better job of articulating those message points. If you wanted an automotive plant, how do we talk about it heavy and often, right? And not just a few times here or there, or every time a comp plan shows up every 5 years, right? If that's really, truly what we're working toward. How do we educate? And one of the things we're actually doing now, and it relates to the transportation conversation, is that common, probably nomenclature for you all that, tips, STIPs, funding, those sources, the common person has no idea, right? Why are they voting on these things? Why are your elected officials, what does that even mean? Where are our tax dollars going? How do we become better at doing that and getting where, again, not to be in the hair of, because later you get in the hair of what you're doing when you're unknown, but if you're educating them on truly things that matter and larger projects of where tax dollars are going, that really is the essence of transparency. And so how often do we discuss? And I think that's important. Also to be prepared to really, have some definitive answers of why do you want this plant? Is it just to cut a ribbon? Are you putting in infrastructure just because, right? Are you adding and expanding roads? Are you expanding electric service? Are you growing your water plant for what, right? And really what's the mission and the vision? And then truly too, I think that it's not done in a vacuum. Like I said, I've spent a significant amount of time now, probably more than I ever thought I would, with teams at GDOT. And I mentioned some of those people earlier, and we should have brought them in way sooner, right? Had this whole discussion and a larger bit of the project sooner than before. Thank you. I think she's behind you.
So I'm guessing there was a bunch of town.
Oh, no, you're good. You're on.
So I'm guessing there was a bunch of town halls for this meeting or for this stuff.
Tell me which part. Well, I will say this. There wasn't as many as I think members wanted.
Okay.
How about that? There were town halls, there were open meetings, even for when the pocket, like let's say this property, for example, when this property was brought into the JDA, there were 19 public meetings around the 4 counties that had to happen to acquire and add them into the taxing stream. Was that really, again, going back to, did we reach as many people as we should have? Maybe, maybe not. Did we have enough? Maybe, maybe not. I think you can always answer that, but I think looking back, should we have had more? I don't know. And I think that, going forward, now we know better of how to reach people. Is it just, in the paper and an ad saying we're having a public meeting, or is it holding forums that we're live streaming and it's very different?
Okay, and then I guess going off of that too, what was the main concern the local populations had?
Pro or against?
I guess more concerns, would be more like
Why
what were
did
they
the-
worried about, with it coming in, that stuff being, affected or whatnot?
Sure. I think the common factor of the anti-group at the time was that, especially in Morgan County, was that the water service was that this was going to deplete the wells and the water. Right? This was going to take all the water. This is actually going to be, again, as I mentioned, here in our reservoir in Newton County, and would not affect potentially groundwater coming into other areas. And again, we've had hydrologists and others look at it. I think the other concern, and we're dealing with this daily, is that we have a lot of industries that go, man, this is going to swallow us up. Right? We don't hear about that often. How are we going to compete with the workforce? You bring in the whale, and we're the small guy, right? And how do you balance into that? I think the pros are, I've had more families, students than ever before sit back and go, I feel like I could stay at home and work in Georgia because I want to build the next electric vehicle. Again, the kids are smarter than us. It was hilarious. I was in a high school not too long ago, and these kids were dropping stuff because they've bought stock for Rivian and also and all these things, and they're doing stuff and trying to find insider trading, what do you know, when's this gonna happen? I'm I was not even thinking about buying stock at 11, as a junior. I'm right? What are you talking about? And so they're this is the future. You have Archer, you have others, and that should be exciting for us as Georgians as well too, that talent wants to stay here. We've heard that often, that they were leaving to go to Silicon Valley or other places, and really that's breeding here. So that's the positive side of it for sure. Other questions? Again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Kaitlyn, thank you for your time. And again, I will leave, I think you have my contact, but if you ever want to come out, if you ever want to see the site, I will tell you, shameless plug, May 8th, if you want to look, the new R2 vehicles will be in downtown Atlanta at Krog Street, so you can see exactly what will be made. They're doing a roadshow tour. They're in Miami, I believe, today. If you don't follow Rivian on their socials or Rivian Atlanta, there's also a website called Proudly Made in Georgia for jobs, things of that nature, and other discussions. But if you want to see the R2s, it'd be May 8th, 9th, and 10th in downtown Atlanta. So again, thank you so much.
All right, please help me give one more last round of applause to Sarah. And thank you again, Temple, for sponsoring this meeting. There's some leftover food, so please feel free to grab a box on your way out. And our next monthly meeting is going to be in Metro Atlanta at HNTB's new office. The division director of the GDOT division director of intermodal, Clement Solomon, is going to be giving us a GDOT update on advanced air mobility and maybe some other projects that he has going on. I think autonomous drones. So thank you all for coming out today. Safe travels and have a good one.